Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the Improvisational Storytelling Podcast, where every week we, your highly professional and highly trained storytellers in one take, record a story for you. I am, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
And I'm Seth.
And we are here to tell you a story in one take. How you guys doing? What story elements did you guys have?
I have government type.
I have prophecy.
Oh, so yawning, Seth? Is it late or something? It is.
I don't know.
It is pretty late, ladies and gentlemen. I have a sequel.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah. So do you want me to go first?
Yeah,
As
please.
the sequel to The Gods Are Here.
Sure.
All right. So if we remember from 2 weeks ago, there was a confrontation in the cave of the 11th god, the evil. If you guys haven't listened to the last series, go and listen to that and then come back. There was a confrontation in the sort of the cave area of the 11th god as he was attempting to sort of absorb all the essence that had been stored up in this knife sword thing to bring himself back and to increase his own power. And he was stopped by a group of adventurers, intrepid adventurers, including, but not limited to, Haggai, the battlemaster, the disgraced battlemaster, the butcher of Beiron. And if you guys remember how it ended, the knife, he was going to stab himself, the bad guy was going to stab himself with it and take all of this power. He was stopped from doing so. This is correct. Guys, right? I'm not misremembering 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, this is good. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Reed. He was stopped from doing so, and that was kind of the end. And like the knife was stuck in his hand. The knife was stuck in his hand so that they couldn't sort of remove it. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of like this protection thing because the knife had a lot of the essence of the different gods in it. And so it was sort of protected from hands that would seek to uplift one god over the other. Now, these gods are really they aren't actual what we'd consider deities, although isn't that anything that's more powerful than us? They came and they created life on this planet. They made these people, and then they separated their essence out and gave it to each of these people in order to make them who they are, right? So you have like the god of war, but really he might be the god of sort of passion, right? So your passions come from the bit of his essence that you hold. Or, you might have the god of commerce, but he might be the god of a certain different type of humor. And I don't mean humor like the silly humor. I mean humor like the different humors of the soul, like the different things that motivate people and ways in which those things sort of are more prevalent in some people. Anyways, regardless. So this is a sequel to this story. If you remember, the story ended with them getting in the skimmer. Nope, it wasn't called the skimmer. It was called the
slider.
The slider, which was a teleportation device that could hone in on different essences. And they had used it to track down this 11th god. And so they had kind of a fight with some cultists, and there was some struggling. And then at sort of the end, as like the cave was collapsing and this god was there, they had used it to sort of escape, right?
Yep.
And they sort of felt that, and it sort of seemed that this 11th god had sort of sucked in a lot of power to himself so that he could return. But what that was doing is that was essentially pulling the evil out of the world so that he could manifest, right? And so after this sort of incident, and he was kind of like locked away, he was able to sort of manifest himself, but the essence that he had shared with the world, the evil that he had placed in every person's heart, was lessened and dimmed. So there was what could be considered kind of like a golden age afterwards, right? As sort of general selfishness, arrogance, deception, the things that we would commonly refer to as evil, or the things that were good, like passion, were less twisted, right?
Cool.
So people were able to make peace. Countries that had sort of been at each other's throats were made peace. Haggai was pardoned, right? And kind of upheld as a hero, right? It was recognized what had happened to him. There was like a lot of things. So your standard kind of beautiful prologue that happens at the end of like the end of Lord of the Rings when everything's good, like
Right.
there's still orcs in the world, there's still goblins and cave trolls and things like that, but all in all things are good.
But there's still flowers and pipeweed in the Shire.
Right. And the age of men is here and things are like still good. Cut to, as if this was a movie, cut to the knife, which little to anyone's knowledge was destroyed in this collapse. And in its destruction, all of the essence that it had been gathering was sent back to all of the gods that it had. And it had a lot of essence from all of the different gods because it basically wasn't a knife necessarily. It was like the implement that I call them gods, but these creatures used to sort of cut out their essence and splice it into their creation, which was humanity. So we sit now kind of, I'd say like 10, 11 years later, right?
Okay.
And you guys have both read Wheel of Time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you remember, if you haven't read Wheel of Time, pause this, read all 14 books, because the scene I'm about to talk about is literally at the very end of the last book. Do you guys remember when Rand was seeking to destroy Shaitan and he was being shown these like different pictures of these different worlds? Like
Right.
what would happen if there was no darkness? What would happen if if you just forced everyone to it's like these terribly weird and messed up worlds?
Right.
That's kind of what we're at, right? It started out being this incredibly sort of altruistic push, and like technology has really advanced and things have really advanced, but this isn't the kingdom of heaven,
Right.
right?
This is really funny because it really fits with my government type. That's
Great.
okay. Keep going.
This has sort of some part of people's essence has been stripped away, and therefore like typically evil people are left with this kind of terrible like nihilistic vacuous hole.
Right.
And the evil one, the 11th being, he has enough power that he can appear to people, and so he has tried to sort of reteach these people and reintegrate them into how to take more of his essence, right? Because only through taking more of his essence will he gain any control over them, and in the same breath, the gods have come back, and some of them have come back in really major ways, like the sea, the god that lived in that statue was in the lighthouse out in the middle of the ocean. I remember we talked about him.
Right.
He came back in a really significant way. The lighthouse like exploded. The statue is gone. All of his followers who were like guarded it, like all disappeared. And the seas have just been like tumultuous, like these 11 years. It's just been storms and, something isn't right with that. Society has sort of risen up, right? And the statues of the gods that were in sort of common picture places, like the god of civilization or the god of trade or whatever, these ones who were in the big markets, they've moved. Like they used to like have a hand out to give and a hand to take. And now maybe one's sitting down or maybe one's looking, but they aren't like moving around, but they moved in this sort of like sudden burst of energy that they were given. And now all the gods, I'm making air quotes, can manifest themselves right out. So there might be a civilization leader who's a god, or there might be a trader who's a god. Great works of art have started to be made. And so it's like the people who are in the know about how this stuff works, because 90% of the world doesn't understand how this works. But the people who are in the know are kind of, maybe some of them are looking for him. My thought process is that Haggai was initially sort of offered to be the king, because like all of these warring villages in the mountains, like because of this sort of stripping away of evil, they all kind of like gathered together to be one unified nation, and they're going to make Haggai the king. And it's like this kind of weird like storybook ending that's like not actually how it should end, but that's how it's ending now. And Haggai took it for like 3 years and then just like disappeared, like because he just couldn't kind of deal with the he couldn't deal with the weirdness of it. And I'd say all of our heroes are maybe in places of sort of power or prestige now, but they themselves can't, they're like not content with it. And they don't have to be the main characters of the story. I think it would be fine to come up with new heroes, but maybe Haggai is like the wise old man now or something else. Maybe he's still the anti-hero. I don't know. But that's the setting for this sequel. So it's like all of society seems to be ticking up, but there's this kind of like under-rot, that is kind of unexplained.
Right.
That's the sequel.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, Seth, is it now the time for this prophecy to slide in, or do you
Yeah,
want me to talk
sure.
about
I'll
government?
slide the prophecy in. And how long, whether this prophecy came up around that time, or I'm thinking with what
Yeah.
Levi said, it could be something that's been around for a while. Again,
Right.
inside of like the people who know. And so I
Right.
think with what's happened, it's gotten everybody kind of in this like, like it's the end of days, all the prophecy is coming about, but like, is this really how it's coming about? But we've seen this, all this stuff going on. And so the prophecy kind of goes like this. See here how did I have it in my head? Because I didn't write it down, but I had it in my head. I'm trying to like put it together here. The those of old, when 3 will fall, be alert. 2 more will falter. A 4th will fall, but not one of the 2. The 11th that was unknown will be manifest, but in an unknown way. And yea, a 12th will rise when the 4th one falls, that will do away with the old and bring back order.
Okay. Do you want to say that again so I can write it down?
Okay. Of those of old, 3 will fall.
3 fall.
Take warning. 2 more will falter. A 4th will fall, but not of the 2. The 11th that was unknown will become known, but not in a way that's expected. And when the 4th falls, a 12th shall rise and do away with the old and put back to order.
Okay. 3 will fall, take notice. 2 will falter. A 4th will fall, but not the 2 that faltered. A 4th will fall. 11 will become back and known, but unexpected. That once the 4th falls, the 12th will come and do away with the old. Cool. What does it mean, Seth? What does it mean?
What does it mean? I think that partly with what you've just said, I think it means that with whatever's happening here, 3 of whatever these gods will fade away. And it would either look like, now some of this can maybe alter change as maybe more things come out. But in my initial idea, partly with what you said, and trying to like put this together here, that's why they've got all this kind of ticking going on, I would say, because this is something that might have been before. So now all of a sudden you have like they're on the move. Some of them are become manifest. Like, where's the sea god? Maybe he's one of the ones that have fallen because he's gone, right?
Right.
Where are some of these other ones? Which ones will falter, as in become very weak, and look like they might disappear or fall away like these other 3 did. But a 4th will, in a sense, unexpectedly fall because it would be assumed that it might be one of these other 2 that seem weak, but it'll be a 4th different one that will fall. And then you have the 11th one, which for the most part has been unknown, will become known, but in an unexpected way. So I would say that would be however he's remanifesting himself, although this might seem like a golden age.
Right.
Perhaps it's something where his direct power is limited, but it's a more subtle, broader, like you said, everyone falling into this nihilistic kind of, it's like everything's good. And so it's like almost like that idea where like if everything is easy, you don't know what you're falling to, right?
Right.
But if you're constantly fighting, then you're kind of, your guard is up.
Absolutely.
And so I think that would be the way that the 11th manifests to the world or is made known to the world, although it's unexpected because it's not directly, not overt, but it becomes known that possibly he's the one that's behind some of that other side of things, where then you would have a 4th one that falls, to whatever conflict and stuff is going on. Because if they're coming awake, perhaps they're fighting again, and perhaps, whatever, we can figure out what's going on.
Right.
But then a 4th one will fall that possibly seems strong and isn't one of the 2 that seem to be getting quite weak, that everyone would assume would be falling or dying off. Or then I would assume, according to kind of how this thought process in my head is going, that the 12th one would be one that would be unknown, but not unknown like the 11th one, but another one that comes in and re-puts an order to things outside of like the old way of everyone kind of giving and taking,
Right.
if that makes sense.
I was
That's
thinking
kind of the idea.
it could even be something like since these are creatures who came to Earth, maybe they have like a ship on the moon, and the 12th one is the one who is away. It was chosen to be sort of away from the experiment, away from the process.
Mm-hmm.
And, who knows if he went into hibernation or if he's been watching this whole time, but it would make for kind of a Deus Ex Machina or for a sort of happy ending if all of a sudden kind of like things are really difficult and the gods know that the gods know that he's up there, but they're like, but we don't want to have to call him to come and make things right because maybe he didn't agree with our method, or maybe we didn't allow him to. He's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yeah, he didn't get to play in the reindeer games.
Yeah, he wasn't like first born with us. He, whatever. That's it. I like that. That's cool. I don't know how it's going to work, but it's an interesting thought process.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, that's the prophecy. So it gives kind of like this doom and gloom, but then like you said, a Deus Ex Machina, or like kind of an in for people to be looking for like some kind of messianic figure, some other kind of hidden figure back and forth, who's going to be the ones that fall or don't fall, or what is that supposed to mean?
Right. Is this a widely known prophecy in your thought process?
I would say that it's probably something that's, like an old writing, something that, like you said, the people in the know, the 10% of the people that, are aware of how some of this stuff works.
Right.
The writings of old, the things of old, they might know some of this, these scholars, the people that, know, but the everyday people that go about their life and it's like, oh yeah, you got like the, the followers of the sea and, they're kind of, they use this stuff, but, I got to go to work and I've got to, produce my, bare minimum amount of, stuff and then, get my super drugs on the black market. Like, right. And so maybe as, some of this stuff is coming about, it's coming out more and more aware as, maybe as this golden age is kind of, apathetic, but perhaps people are like, okay, well, what's going on here? And so then they start looking, I don't know, there could be I would say at first though, it's pretty much just the people in the know that kind of have figured out what's going on here. But perhaps by the end, it creates, someone leaks something or starts spreading, their versions of what they think some of these things might mean, to compare to what's going on with, the sea god being missing, or, there's not great healings anymore, or I don't know, whatever it is.
Right.
One thing that I would think, now we can play into this if we want, but part of my thought of the certain ones falling was that people would be born without, well, like once they fell.
Oh yeah.
Because I wasn't quite sure how long a time frame you'd put between these. But once they've fallen, it'd be like the sea god falls, and now like no one has any clue. Like they get out on a boat and they just like lose their internal compass. Like they don't know, like, and they wouldn't even have to be like, they wouldn't know how to like pull an oar, or like they would just lose it. Like it loses that part of that essence, right? And so if there was like the god of math, right? And he disappeared or fell, all of a sudden, like maybe everyone born after that wouldn't then be getting a portion of that essence. Like you couldn't teach them to count to save their life, right? And so it would be like this thing where it's like, and again, if it's 11 years, perhaps, I don't know some of the time frame we want to add to this as some of it's going about, but that was kind of my idea, is as some of these other ones were falling, the next generations of people being born would then just be missing that. It'd be like a blank space, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyways, that was kind of my idea with, some of the repercussions with these ones falling. We'll see how it plays in. As far as that goes, that's kind of the prophecy and some of the things I had in mind with, what it would look like.
Cool. I like it. I was even thinking maybe before it's attributed to gods, there might even be like I was thinking like 12 or 11 great leaders or 12 or 11 great cities or something. So it's not like specifically, it could be like 12 great practices, or I don't know. I was just thinking, if it wasn't specifically going to be leaders, I mean the gods, people could think, oh, hey, maybe it's these systems.
Well, that kind of falls right in. I've got government type, so I might as well just throw out what my ideas on that. But it falls right in with what you're talking about. The way I had envisioned the government type would be there'd be a ruling council of the people, or the, not the gods, but a ruling council that's kind of a deliberative body, and the different facets of society choose someone to be a representative, and there'll be different concerns that will have somebody on the ruling council, but it's really an oligarchy,
Right.
And it's a mixture of like the gods, and then they're kind of pets. They're kind of the ones that are behind the scenes, have their hands on the organs of power, so to speak. And it's, there's very little transparency because there's nothing too dramatic going on in this, like you say, golden age. So it's kind of things are going smoothly, and institutions are generally trusted because there's not a lot of overt, evil and whatnot, like you said. And so, the different, like the banking, I when I started out with the economic system where you have a central banking, wage and price controls. The technology is such that everything can be easily tracked, except that, because of the nature of people, they want to get rewarded for effort. And so a lot of the mundane kind of tasks kind of go along with some mediocrity, but because of the black market and there's things to trade that have high value, then people can still get quality goods and services, but it's on a more informal basis. But the thing, like I say, there's little transparency and not really much clamor for, as long as the oligarchs kind of keep things running smoothly, people amuse themselves in other ways and don't get too worried about it. So it's kind of like you say, as the rot sets in, it'll be it'll only be noticeable incrementally at first.
Yeah.
Does that work for you guys? Is this kind of behind the scenes oligarchy that's, we kind of trust the expert class, and they've got their thing going on and things roll along. It's complicated when some of the gods fall, like there's turmoil there, but it's mostly this kind of golden age where, like I say, not too much overt evil, things going along pretty smoothly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think it would work.
So do we want
That's
to...
the thing, even if there... What's that?
No, start, Seth, go.
Oh, yeah, no, with something like that, I just think of not that there hasn't always been turmoil, but I just think of, not to get too political, but, some of us are younger and some of us can look back through several, political ups and downs through the ages. Not that there hasn't always been scandals and whatnot, but I think that to some degree, some of the things that you realize go on, went completely unnoticed for a long time in the way that you realize that they do go on. And so you can see how a lot of people would be content to just keep going on with, life is normal. Everything in my little circle is fine. So, and kind of looking over, some of the bigger picture of the stuff that goes on.
Yeah, I kind of have a picture. It's kind of a time with, Walter Cronkite and the news. You trust the sources of information you have. These institutions are, basically people still trust them, but it doesn't change the fact that there is, because of the nature of this, the oligarchy, there's potential especially with the technology available, that if things should take a dark turn, there's definitely the potential for manipulation.
Cool. Well, do we want to, unless anyone has any other interesting world building stuff to expound on this, do we want to call it here and come back next week?
I'm cool with that.
Yeah, that
Great.
sounds
I feel
good
like
to
we
me.
kind of set up things really well. Take some time to think about it with our new story elements and come back next week. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for this episode of Wait, It Gets Better. If you like this episode, if you like us, if you think we're cool and neat, send us an email with telling us that at waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com or at us on Twitter at @getsbettercast. And as always, we will see you guys next week. Bye.